Hey, seventh graders, this is your Unit 7.4.3, Developing Geometry with Algebra Review. As you watch this video, you will go through 10 example problems to help you review concepts that'll get you ready for your exam on Thursday. So your job is to be at a voice level 0 during the video so that everybody can hear the information. You are also supposed to be copying down the examples so that you have some notes to use to study for your test. So we are ready to get started with our video. There will be places for you to pause and record your information on your review sheet. Okay, here is problem number 1, and we have a circle, and it says which of the following equations could be used to calculate the circumference of this circle. So we are not expecting you to memorize any of the formulas for circumference, but there are 2 on your formula sheet. Those 2 are circumference equals pi times diameter, and circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius. Remember that you can estimate pi by using the number 3, and that should get you fairly close to one of your answer choices. Since it asks us which of the equations we could use, we have to go back and look at our circle and determine, do I have a diameter or do I have a radius? So when I look at our circle, I have 3 inches. That 3 inches indicates a radius. Remember that a radius goes halfway across the circle and a diameter goes all the way across the circle. So that means we are going to be using the formula that involves radius. So we're going to use this formula right here. Okay. So now all we're going to do is substitute some numbers in and see which one of the equations matches our answer choices. So the 2 is going to stay the same. Pi, if we look at our answer choices, pi stayed the same. And we're going to plug in the number for our radius. So our radius is 3. So C equals 2 times pi times 3. So if we go look at our answer choices, the one that has 2 times pi times 3 is answer choice A. So please pause here, record any notes that you need to record for this problem. All right, moving on to problem number 2. It says Erin bought 4 identical candles that she is going to decorate with ribbon. She wants to glue 1 piece of ribbon around each candle. The candle's diameter is 3 inches. Estimate how much ribbon she should buy. So there's some key pieces of information. When she's talking about around each candle, that means we are going on the outside. So that is the perimeter. So remember, circles don't have a perimeter. Instead, they have circumference. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a picture to help me with this. So I'm going to draw a circle, and in that circle, the problem tells us that we have a diameter of 3 inches. So since we have a diameter, remember diameter goes all the way across our circle. So we have a diameter that is 3 inches long, and we can put our measurement, 3 inches. Okay, since we're going around, again, we want circumference. So we want the circumference formula that has diameter. So circumference equals pi times diameter. So we're going to substitute our numbers in. And since it said estimate right here, that means that we can use 3 for pi. So we'll substitute in. So that would be 3 times our diameter of 3 as well. So that gives us a total of 9 inches of ribbon that we would need to go around 1 candle. But if we go back up to the top, it said she bought 4 candles. So we have to take this 9 and we have to multiply that by 4 for the 4 candles that she's buying to put the ribbon around. So 9 times 4 gives us a total of 36 inches that she would need to go around her 4 candles. Okay? So please pause here to record any information that you need for this problem. All right, moving on to problem number 3. It says a standard square CD case has side length of 12 centimeters. If the CD, which is round, fits perfectly inside the case, what is the area of the case that is not taken up by the CD? So we have a few keywords. Square CD case. And the CD, as I said, is circular. Okay, and it says what is the area that is not taken up by the CD. So the first thing we're going to do is draw a picture to represent what's going on. So first I'm going to draw my square CD case, and I'm going to put the measurement of 12 centimeters on the side. After that, I'm going to draw my round CD, and it says it fits perfectly inside the case. So that means edge to edge, it's going to fit. Okay, so I've drawn my circle inside. So remember, since the measurement of that square is 12 centimeters, that means across our CD, that measurement is also 12 centimeters. That gives us the diameter. So it says, what is the area of the case that is not taken up by the CD? So we're looking for this little space on the outside, and that's not going to be a lot. So what we're going to do to solve our problem, we are going to take the area of our square and we are going to subtract the area of our circle. So we know that the area of the square is base times height because we can multiply those two pieces of information. It's a rectangle, so we'll use the rectangle formula. We know the area of our circle, and remember, you don't have to memorize these formulas. They are on your formula chart. Equals pi times radius squared. Remember, radius squared. So remember, radius squared equals r times r. So we're going to subtract these two areas. So we'll start with our square. That's the easy part. So that is 12 times 12 for a total of 144 centimeters squared. And now we're going to do our area of our circle. So we're going to go ahead and just use pi for 3 so that we get a nice number. So it becomes 3 times. Well, let's go to our diagram. Well, I have a diameter of 12. And remember, our formula says radius. So we take half of 12 to get our radius. So it becomes 6 times 6. So we have a little math to do. So 6 times 6 is 36, and I need to take 36 and multiply by 3. So that gives me 18 here. Carry my 1. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So the approximate area of my circle is 108 centimeters squared, just by using pi as 3 instead of 3.14. So now I'm going to subtract 144 minus 108. So 144 minus 108. So our area of our square, take out the area for our CD. So I got to do some borrowing here. That becomes 3. This is 14. So 14 minus 8 is 6. 3 minus 0 is 3. And 1 minus 1 is 0. So the area that is left outside the CD is approximately 36 centimeters squared. Okay, so go ahead and pause here, and you can record your work for this problem. All right, moving on to number 4. It says a welcome mat in front of a hardware store is a half circle. The straight side of the mat is 24 inches. What is the perimeter of the mat? And it says round to the nearest inch. So I'm going to go ahead and draw an illustration for this. All right, here's our mat. It says it's a half circle. It also tells us that this measurement right here across the bottom is 24 inches. Okay, and we are looking for perimeter. So remember, perimeter is the circumference of a circle. So if we look, this 24 goes all the way across. So remember, that is our diameter for our circle. So we're going to use a formula, C equals pi times d. But we have a little work to do because I don't need the whole circle circumference. I only have half a circle. So at the end, I'm going to have to take this answer, and I'm actually going to have to divide it by 2 because I have half the circle. But that half the circle is just this kind of blue part that's going around. We also are going to have to add this 24 at the bottom for the bottom part of our mat. So I'm going to go ahead and put that plus 24 in our formula. So now we're going to go figure out what this part right here equals. We're going to use 3 for pi because that will get us close enough. So I have 3 times our diameter of 24. We're going to get that answer. We're going to add, or excuse me, divide it by 2, then add our other 24 inches. So when I have 3 times 24, that gives me 72. So I'm going to have 72 divided by 2 plus 24. When I divide 72 by 2, that gives me 36. So I have 36 plus 24 for a total of 60 inches. So my approximate answer for the circumference or the perimeter of our mat is going to be 60 inches. Okay, so you may pause here and copy down the work for this problem. All right, moving on to number 5, it says find the area of the following figure. So our job is to break it down into 2 shapes that make it easy. So I'm going to just put a line right across here. Okay, so that means I have this shape that's up here in the blue, and I have this shape that's down here in the red. Okay, so I've identified my 2 shapes, but I've got to go up here and I've got to get some measurements for this one. So I know the top is 4, but I've got to figure out this measurement for this part. Well, I know the whole thing is 10, and I know up to here is 5. So that makes this part right here also 5 feet. So I'm going to put that label. So I don't have a square because the measurements are not the same. I have a 4 by 5 rectangle, and down at the bottom I also have a rectangle, and it's 12 by 5. So I have 2 rectangles that I'm going to add together. So we're going to start first with our blue rectangle information. So remember, area equals base times height. And again, you don't have to memorize this formula, it's on your formula chart. So our base is 4 times our height of 5. So I have 4 times 5, which gives me a total of 20 for the first one, 20 feet squared. Okay. Now let's take a look at our red rectangle. Since we have a rectangle again, the area is still base times height. So this time our measurements for our base are 12 and the height is 5. So those are the numbers that I plug in. 12 times 5. Well, 12 times 5 gives me the answer of 60 feet squared. So now I'm going to take my 2 areas that I have. I'm going to add 20 plus 60, and that gives me a total of 80 feet squared for the total area of this composite shape. Okay, so pause here, record the work for problem number 5. All right, now let's have a look at problem number 6. It says the figures below show the relationship between 2 supplementary angles. So which of the following represents the value of x? Notice we don't have any multiple choice answers, so it is going to be our job to find the value of x. It's not asking us what 6x equals. It's not asking us what 3x equals. It just wants to know, what does x equal? So we have to go back to this word supplementary. And if we look at our picture, we're talking about this angle right here that is made up of these two separate angles. Well, I notice that they make a straight line. So since they make a straight line, they total 180 degrees. So supplementary angles, keep that in mind, total 180 degrees. So I can create my equation. I know those two angles added together make 180 degrees. So 6x plus 3x equals 180 degrees. Both of these have an x. We can combine those like terms. So that means I have a total of 9x, which is equal to 180 degrees. So we're going to use our mirror method to solve this problem. We're going to use they do, I do. So what are they doing to x? So in this case, there's only one thing they do to x. So they multiply x by 9. And so remember, the I do, we have to do the opposite. So this one's a little bit easier because there's only one operation that we have to undo. And the opposite of multiplying by 9 is going to be to divide by 9. Remember, to solve our equation, we do the part at the bottom, the I do. So we're going to divide each of these by 9. So 9 over 9 cancels out. And I end up with x equaling 180 divided by 9. So I think 18 divided by 9 is 2. Add my 0. So x equals 20. And that is the answer to our problem, because it says which of the answers is the value of x. So x equals 20 is our answer to this problem. Pause, record your work. All right, for number 7, you have not seen a problem like this. No guarantee that you will see one on your test tomorrow, but in case you do, I want you to have seen this question. So normally we will have seen just like the top part, okay? And it asks us for the measure of angle R, which is right here, okay? So I have to use this relationship with the 9x and the 11x to help me find R. So 9x and 11x, those two angles are next to each other. They are adjacent. So remember, adjacent angles are their neighbors. They have a fence in between. Okay? So if we look at angle R, it's down here. These two lines are parallel. That means that these angles right here are going to have the same measurement as these. So if this angle is 9x, this one has the same measurement right here. It also is 9x. Okay? That means also that this one would be 9x and R is 9x. So if we can find the value of 9x, then I know the measurement for R. So we're going to use the fact that 9x and 11x are making that straight line. And remember, straight lines total 180 degrees. So I have my equation, 9x plus 11x, and that totals 180 degrees. So if I combine 9x plus 11x, that's 20 total x's, and that totals 180 degrees. So we're going to use they do, I do to help me solve this problem. So what are they doing to x? The only thing that they do to x is multiply it by 20. So again, one operation. So remember, in the I do, we are going to do the opposite. So the opposite of multiplying by 20 is to divide by 20. This is our work down here. So I'm going to take each side and divide it by 20. So remember, we can kind of cross off those zeros there. So I end up with x equals 18 divided by 2, which is 9. But we don't need the value of x. I need the value of 9x. So we have to take this answer right here, and we have to plug it in where I have 9x. So I'm going to take this 9, plug it in to that x. So my problem becomes 9 times 9, which gives me a total of 81. So that means the missing degree measurement for angle R is 81 degrees. Okay, I'm not sure that you're going to see any on your test like this again, but just in case, I want you to have noticed some angle relationships that are in this picture. Okay, so pause here and record this information on your review. All right, moving on to number 8, it says find the value of x. So we just need to know what x equals. So I have these two angles right here, 2x and 40 degrees. And if I look at the picture right here, I see that 90-degree angle. So that means these two angles are complementary. Okay, so remember, complementary angles are two angles that total 90 degrees. So that means these two angles together give me a total of 90 degrees. So 2x plus 40 totals 90 degrees. Now remember, our job is to solve for x. What is the value for x? So we're going to use our strategy of they do, I do. So we've got our they do, I do. This time we have two things that they're doing to x. So the first thing that they do to x is multiply x by 2. The second thing that they do to x is they add 40. So we have to do the opposite in the opposite order. So our first step is going to be subtracting 40 on each side. Our second step is going to be doing the opposite of multiplying by 2, which is to take each side and divide by 2. So remember, this part at the bottom is what you have to do to solve this problem. So the first thing says that we are going to subtract 40 on each side. So subtract 40 on the left, subtract 40 on the right. Plus 40 minus 40, remember they cancel out to make 0. So that leaves me with 2x equals 90 minus 40 gives me 50. Okay, so my next step after I subtracted 40 is to divide by 2. So I'm going to divide each side by 2, and I get that x equals 25. And that's what they asked us to solve for. What is the value of x? X is 25. Okay, so pause here and record your work for this problem. All right, problem number 9 talks about triangles, and that's the information we covered yesterday. Remember that all 3 angles in a triangle total 180 degrees. So remember, this little angle right here with that little box tells us that that is 90 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and put that information in my triangle. So I have 5x plus 90 plus 30. All 3 of those together total 180 degrees. So I'm going to combine these two to make our equation a little bit easier. So I have 5x plus 90 plus 30 gives me 120. And that equals 180. So we have an equation again that we are going to need to solve. All right, so we're going to use they do, I do using our mirror. So the first thing that they do to x is they multiply it by 5. So they take x, multiply it by 5. After they multiply x by 5, they add 120. So remember, what we're going to do is do the opposite of these two steps in reverse order. So the first thing we're going to do is undo the adding 120 by doing the opposite, which is going to be subtract 120 on each side. After that, we do the opposite of the first thing, which is to divide by 5. So the bottom part tells us our two steps that we have to do. So remember, you're always doing what's on the bottom of our mirror. So the first thing we have to do is subtract 120 on each side. So this plus 120 minus 120 cancels out. So I have 5x equals 180 minus 120 is 60. So I've completed step number 1, which is to subtract 120 on each side. Step number 2 says divide by 5. So I'm going to divide each of those sides by 5. These cancel, and that leaves me with x equaling 60 divided by 5, which is 12. So my answer to this problem is x equals 12, and that's what it wanted us to solve for. It wanted us to solve for x. So we don't have anything else that we have to do, just solve for x. So pause here and record your work for this problem. Our final problem that we are looking at, it says write an equation for x and solve for each missing angle. So notice we have x's here that we're going to have to find that answer, and we're actually going to have to find the answer to 2x as well. So remember, it's a triangle. So all 3 of those angles add together for a total of 180. So I have x plus 2x, and that all together adds to our 180 degrees for our triangle. So that's 1x plus 1x is 2x plus 2 more x's gives me a total of 4x when I combine all of those like terms. So now my equation looks like this. 4x equals 180. So one more time we're going to have a look at our mirror and the they do, I do. This one's a little bit easier because there's only one thing that they are doing to x, and they are taking x and they are multiplying by 4. So remember, we're going to do the opposite of what it says to solve our problem. So the opposite of multiplying by 4 is to divide by 4. So we're going to divide by 4 on each side of our equation. So these 4's will cancel out. So I have a little bit of work to do because I don't know what 180 divided by 4 is off the top of my head. So we're going to do some work over here on the side. So 4 will not go into 1, so I put a 0. Put 0 here, subtract. Bring my 8 down. So 4 goes into 18 4 times, because 4 times 4 is 16. Subtract. I've got 2 left over. Bring down my other 0. And 4 goes into 20 5 times. So that means that x equals 45. So that gives us 2 angles. That gives us this angle right here. And now we know this angle. So these are both 45 degrees. So 45 here and 45 for this angle. But we still have a little bit of work to do because we have to find what is 2x equal. So we're going to take 2x and we're going to substitute in that 45 degrees. So that becomes 2 times 45, which gives me a total of 90 degrees. So that means our missing measurement for 2x is 90 degrees, which also makes this a right triangle because we have a 90-degree angle. And since these two angles have the same measurement, that means this side and this side are congruent. So we happen to have a right isosceles triangle in problem number 10. So that completes our review problems. Make sure you copy the last one. We'll pause here. That'll help you get ready for your test. If you bring your test review back tomorrow, there's probably some extra credit bonus points in it for you. Okay? Enjoy!